Hey, brother. I like this.
Cheers in front of the pyramids, dude.
Cheers. Yeah.
Beautiful.
In case you couldn't tell, we're currently in Giza, Egypt, with one of my great friends, one of my best friends, Leo Stagi. He's in both Compass and Congruency, actually, and this is now our, maybe 2 years? 2 years? It feels like longer. It feels like way longer.
Together too,
yeah, third big trip together. 2 years knowing each other feels like longer. But yeah, like I already said, this is essentially a place where others can come and watch and meet who I travel with and some of my best friends and understand their stories and use it as proof of concept in their own lives to propel them to whatever level and whatever life they're looking towards. So if you just do a personal introduction beyond what we've already talked about, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, my name's Leo. Like Will said, we've been buddies for, I think, probably 3 years now. I've been in real estate for 2 years now, building a business that allows me the freedom to travel with wonderful guys like the dudes in Compass. And then I also run a community back in Austin, Texas myself, which is a passion project of mine called Reveal. That's sort of like the Austin, Texas version of Compass, like a localized version, just very community-based events and creating experiences for people to bring great people together.
Yeah.
That's my intro.
Awesome. And then we'll tack on a little bit to that too. That's your intro. Where do you come from before that?
I was born and raised in the Bay Area, and I bounced around the United States a little bit in my early 20s, and then I ended up in Australia. I ended up in Japan for a bit, in Mexico for a little bit, and I've just always been like a huge proponent of travel for growth and experience, and I'm a big network guy like you, so it's really valuable for me to change my scenery pretty often just to keep growing and developing my network. But I don't come from a background of like wild, adventurous entrepreneurs or anything. I come from a background of like blue collar workers as well. Worked for my dad like you did for many years. Probably ran the gauntlet of like 20 jobs by the time I was like 25. And then I discovered online business just through the old YouTube search of like just how to be free or like how to make money or how to, I don't know what the search was, but it led me down a rabbit hole, and that led me into the whole I need to start traveling to meet the right people. I need to broaden my horizons path. And that started with a trip to Thailand when I was 20 years old, and then I really caught the bug. And since that trip, it's just been constantly affirmed that if you want to put yourself in the environments where the people that you want to be like already exist, especially when you're young. So that's what I did. I was like, where do traveling like online business, entrepreneurial type people exist? What environments are they going to be in? And I just put myself there. And now here we are with a legendary group of guys that are, a handful of years younger than me and extremely successful and just wonderful energy all around. It is fun to like occasionally trace that all the way back to the beginnings. Yeah.
And actually highlighting that from either the beginnings or even from that 22, you're now 28. What would you say from like that period has been the unique piece of you? Obviously you just highlighted, kind of doing it and just having that constantly reaffirm that this is the way. But is there something like special about Leo Stagi that you feel has really propelled you or been key in your growth to where you are now and will take you further?
Mm-hmm. Definitely, like if you look at it from the perspective of health, wealth, relationships, spirituality, I tend to like sometimes categorize people on like a natural skill, or like where do they lean into, what are they good at, or like what was their first entry into personal development. Usually it exists in like one of those categories for most people, and for me it was for sure relationships. I was really, and then you guys can tell from the fact that I do the community stuff back home, I've always been a really social person. I've always been charismatic enough to walk up and make friends. And I leaned into that super, super hard in my early 20s by working in sales, working in nightlife, working in event planning, working as an executive assistant for a high-level business owner, and just constantly putting myself in positions where I was leveraging sort of like soft social skills and emotional intelligence to make other people's lives easier in any way that I could. And yeah, for me, I think I do have like an eye for curation and an eye for creating groups like you do. That's why I do what I do, and experiences as well. But maybe I've leaned into that in later years. Earlier, it was honestly vibe. Like this, that's a funny thing that I tell a lot of young dudes when they're like not sure what value they have to offer when they start off that journey of putting themselves around the right people. Like I mentioned, for me, it was just was always extremely ambitious, always like fun, and always really energetic. And those are evergreen character traits for someone who's on more of a middle or like ladder path of that whole like freedom entrepreneurial thing, because it's kind of like what we're all working towards in the end anyway. It's just like this funny concept of like being in like mega grind set or something like that and losing the spark in your eye and the childlike joy that you then realize was the goal all along once you get the freedom and sovereignty. And I think I just sort of through luck or God's path for me was always pretty maxed out in those like enjoyment stats. So I had interesting occurrences where people who were much more financially successful than me or like traveled would be like, I just really like your energy and your ambition. Like it'd be cool to travel together if you're able to make it happen. And then I would just figure out how to make it happen.
Sweet. And I love all those stories you have. Like something that's really interesting about Leo, and you've already highlighted too, is like you were really you've done so much since it's in the time in the beginning, and like you will pull a story, like you'll tell a story that I haven't heard before. I'm like, shit, this guy's just ripping another like literally out of his ass. Like I didn't know you did this. Like you've done cool things all around the world in so many different avenues, and like I love that about you, which allows you to be so multidimensional, not only in like your skills but also in your engagement with others, which we've already talked about enough. Both of us know is extremely helpful in the group scenarios and curation of the vibe or whatever we want to say. And then really to mostly wrap things out, what is something or a lesson, just something in particular, or a point of emphasis for either someone wanting to be more like you, to live more like you, or even if you want to frame it in the sense of what would you tell younger Leo?
Man, like this trip, I just can't get this concept of how impressed I am with the level of faith in these younger guys, in themselves and in higher power, God, universal intelligence. Those were concepts that I did not have when I was younger. I was, it's just like internalizing a level of faith and belief in like a sort of a cosmic energy or destiny to a degree really takes a lot of the pressure off of you to figure everything out every step of the way. And at my age, I still consider myself extremely young and naive, and I constantly affirm and remind myself every day, do not allow yourself to get into a place of arrogance where you think you know how everything is going to go, or you need to know how everything is going to go to get from point A, where you are right now, to point B, where you want to be. And what I always tell guys is leveraging the power of the subconscious has been huge for me. Having conversation with God and prayer is big for me. And these are kind of a little bit more like esoteric stuff that you teach in congruency. So if you guys are more curious about those concepts or you haven't really heard much about them, I would honestly just look at a congruency, because that's been a huge resource for me in that sense. But this is something that you'll hear echoed by like people at the top of the top as well. This is not for beginners, mid-level, or elite level freedom, sovereignty, travelers, business folk, just joyful, peaceful, serene folk. It's just like it's a through line from all of them that I've witnessed in my life, and I really wish that I had just I don't know, maybe stumbled across the right information earlier, or fell into a different group of people. I believe everything happens for a reason, and I ended up with the people that I was with for a reason and learned a lot of good stuff. But I certainly wasn't affirmed like this idea of like faith or belief in a higher power. It was more of like a hedonistic pursuit, which I think because I have such a pure heart and like a genuine disposition towards like care and love for others, that I steered myself in the right direction. But man, like if some other kids were put in the position of like just like opportunity for a lot of like, how do you put it? I was offered just a lot at a young age, and when you're young, you're dumb. You make decisions based on like validation from others or chasing highs, and I definitely indulged more than I probably should have, but I'm really, really happy and grateful that I didn't go too dark down a path. But basically what I'm saying is it's not all sunshine and rainbows when you get lots of money, when you get around great people, because even there's extremely rich people that are wonderful, that are driven by their heart, that do have faith, and that are altruistic and working for the betterment of others. And then there's also extremely wealthy and successful and powerful people that are very, very dark individuals. And if you're strictly driven by the pursuit of power or wealth and you don't have your own faith built in, you will easily be pulled in a very dark side kind of direction.
Yeah.
So, not to end it on a heavy note, heavy dark note.
Wrap it up. Yeah, it would be keep the faith, build the faith, and follow the faith. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Maintain the light. Focus on the light side. You can be just as successful while maintaining your purity and your light.
Yeah. Cheers, brother. Pleasure.
Sweet.
That's it.
Let's go.
Woo! Actually, finally, sit back down. Where can people find you? Instagram, Twitter, whatever you prefer.
Instagram at Leo_Stagi. Twitter is the exact same thing.
Sweet. Follow Leo. Hit him with questions. Feel free to always hit me. Cheers, everybody.